Hey everyone, I'm Andrei, I'm a developer on Wizards World, and I want to take on a behind the scenes tour today. This is where part of the magic happens. Let me take you along, maybe we can implement the feature together today.
All right, let me show you some stuff we're working on. So the project is pretty big. We have a big part which is, of course, the networking. We have a big part which represents the logic for the lessons, and of course the dueling. But the prototype won't be great if it doesn't look alright and if it doesn't sound alright. So that's a pretty big part as well. So we're working on these finishing touches before sending out the prototype for testing. And I've been working recently on both special effects like particle effects, especially for the dueling and the lessons. But more recently, I've been working on sound system. So basically to play sounds throughout the game. And as this is a network game, we have a few requirements. I won't go over each and every one right now, but basically we need each client to be able to play its own sound locally if needed, but we also need a server to be able to tell whatever client to play a certain sound. So I won't go through the entire system, which is basically pretty simple, but I'll show you like very quickly around. So throughout the code, I've designed something called a sound instigator, which is a singleton or a single instance class, which you just call this line of code, and you provide it the ID of the sound you want to play, and then everything is handled behind the scenes. As I told you, this basically calls two functions. So it can call two functions: client play sound, which plays the sound locally, or server play client play sound on client. This is called by the server if there's a player. The server wants that client to play a sound. This goes through a thing called scriptable object, which is used only for events. So you have some Unity events. We call these events, and other components can subscribe to these events. We also use something called dependency injection. So for this previous thing I've showed you, the sound player events, we inject it in whichever script we needed. And this way we decouple the code pretty neatly. So if, let's say in a regular case, you have two components, you want to communicate between them. Let's say you should usually have a reference between the two, like component A should know about component B in order to exchange some information. The problem is that if component A, you want to use it then in isolation of component B, you can't really, because those two are pretty much linked together. Through dependency injection, we have the two components, we inject whatever dependency, in this case these events, is needed, and then we just need to do some setup and just call from whichever side the event, and everything is handled pretty nice. So in this script, the network client sound player, it's basically where the magic happens. This script runs on the client. There's some setup stuff here at the top where we subscribe to the events. We have the play sound locally, which plays the sound locally for the client, or if the server asks this client to play the sound, there's this function which basically sends an RPC, which is short for a remote procedure call, which basically is a way of exchanging information between server and client. So the server tells the client, hey, you should do this. In this case, you should play some sound, right? And each sound we have each sound we use has a set of properties, like we have multiple sounds which are identified by this ID, and also we can change the pitch of the sound, the volume, and so on and so forth. So right now this system is pretty simple in the sense that I've used a particular function, this one, audio source dot this play one shot function, which basically is pretty handy if you have like very short sounds, or you want to play sounds one after another and you don't have to wait for one sound to finish. But throughout the game I've been thinking of some parts in which of course this won't work. Let's take, for example, we have a lesson called botanical studies, in which you will have like a watering can, or you can call it maybe a sprinkler can. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. I think you know by looking at it. which you can in AR mode grab it, and you have to hover with it over a pot in order, or over a plant to water it. So basically you want to have sounds there as well. But that sound, the amount of time we play the sound will depend on how long you're actually holding that there. So we need a different system. We cannot just play a sound and call it a day. We need a mechanism to start playing it and stop playing it. All right, I am back. I've just loaded into the project. So this is basically what we want to do. I won't go into the actual lesson right now because it takes some time, because you need to start the client and go to that particular lesson, start lesson, so on and so forth. So I've just so I'm just developing this in isolation of the actual lesson the item is used in. So we have this watering can right here, which I've programmed some buttons. You can pour water or stop pouring water. I'm doing this manually just so I can work more easy on it. So basically want to play a sound when we're pouring and stop playing when we stop pouring, of course. Alright, so this is the script for the watering can. We have two pretty simple functions here, a pour water and a stop pouring water, which right now it only plays the particle effects. There's other logic involved behind the scenes which handles the logic which during the lesson, but right now we're only interested in playing this sound. So let's start work on this, and off the top of my head we would need a few modifications to the sounds the sound system we already have right now. So we are able to control for each sound the pitch, the volume, and the delay, but I know for a fact that this function, play one shot, won't be able to loop our sound, so we need to implement that as well. So we definitely need to call a different function, and oh yeah, and we also need to have a parameter for the looping, so we need to implement a few more properties for this, for our custom sound parameters. So let's say this will be a bool one shot, public bool loop. Alright, so we also need to set these, so let's add them right here. Bool one shot, we'll put it by default as true, and looping we'll put it by default as false. Alright, and we need to assign the values now, and looping of course. Okay. Alright, we still need to do some work. This is just starting stuff. Let's handle the playing of the sound. So we'll have the parameters right here. We will need to play, let me hide this, we need to play, we use a different function other than this play one shot. I think it's audio source just play, which doesn't take any parameters, but we will need to see which one to play. So we use the sound parameters. So if it's one shot, then we basically want to play this one. Else, so if one shot is false, we play using this function. And we also need to set the looping. So we have this parameter here, sorry, and we can get it from our sound parameters, which is just implemented before that. Alright, so in the events, I don't think we need to change anything because we're getting the full, the entire structure regarding the parameters. And before that, for the sound instigator, this is already set up. And I probably, we need to call it, but we need to specify the mode in which we want to play it. So let's go back to the watering controller, and when we call this pour water function, our sound instigator instance, let's do it locally right now. Client will play sound. Need the sound type. I know this is conveniently it's the first one, the watering sound, and we need some sound parameters for that. So we can do new sound parameters. We don't need to set out each one every one. So we don't want one shot, and we want looping. So we can set only those we want to set. So one shot will be I said false, right? And then loop will be true. And the other ones will be as they are right now. Alright. If I didn't forget anything, it's usually... Okay, let me just quickly start up the project and be right back. Alright, I paused the video just for a bit because usually starting up the server and the client takes just a bit of time, so I didn't want to waste that time for you. Right now we have two new Unity instances. The left one is the server, and this one is the client. You can basically see the client here. I can do whatever, play around with him, but we're not interested in that right now. We're interested in this watering can, and if we did something with it. So right now, if we click the pour water, we should basically start hearing the sound effect, and hopefully it will loop as well. So let's see. Okay, great. Now if I want to stop it, I mean the effect stopped, but I've probably maybe guessed from what code I've done, there's no stopping right now of the sound. So we need to implement that as well, of course. The good thing is the pouring of the water, the sound effect for it actually works. One more thing I want to show you guys. Maybe you're interested in how we're getting the sound clips. Let me search for the player. So we have this guy right here. We have an audio. We have this script which we've been working upon, which has an audio library. Basically, we have each and every sound by its ID and the sound clip. So, not sure where exactly the BT watering should be. Let's find it. Oh, here it is. Okay. So that's how we determine. We just give it the ID, and then we have a list in which we have both of these information, both of these objects, and you can determine which sound you want to play. Alright, let's go back and finish up the code so we can also stop link. I'll do something very, very simple just for the sake of the video. So on the instance we want client stop, let's say stop sound, and we don't need any parameters because we just want to stop whatever is playing right there. So let's implement this function here. Client stop sound. So what we'll need to call is sound player events. Don't have it yet, but let's call it the same. Client stop sound. We need to implement now the event as well. So I know we can't really cheat. We need to actually create a Unity event. Client stop sound event. Okay, we need to not forget to initialize it. Oh, almost forgot. We don't need any. Do we need? No, we don't need any parameters for it. I hope I don't need. If not, I'll pause the video and be right back. So, new Unity event. It's just an empty Unity event. And if this is played, then we invoke the event. Awesome. And now we need to subscribe to it. So we called it, but we need this component to basically receive that trigger and do whatever, in this case play that event. So I need to subscribe to it. Player stop sound event will add a new listener handle client stop sound. Let's say locally as well. create the method, and don't forget, never forget to unsubscribe from these events. Alright, so this should be pretty straightforward. We have the audio source here, so that's good. I think we just need to call stop on it. Alright, cool. Of course, this should be handled maybe a bit better. We just, whatever sound is playing, we will just stop it. Maybe we need some parameters to have like we had before when we play, have some delay. Maybe we will implement some fading in, fading out for the sounds. Right now, just the bare bones stuff, just to see it working. Alright, so everything seems fine. Again, I'll be right back. Let me start up the server and the client. Cool, so this is the client. As you can see, you have this guy moving around here. And now if we start pouring the water, that still works, that's a good sign. If we stop, the sound also stops. Of course, more features to be added, more testing to be done, so on and so forth. Maybe I can show you one more thing before this, before we end. Okay, just to show you, let's say other sounds we want to play, let's get rid of this sound and use some SC, which is some spellcasting sound. So let's say if we pour the water, we play a spellcast successful sound just for fun. If we want to stop it, we will play, we don't have a failed one, I'm sure of that. I know we have a marker incorrect hit. We want to stop it. And everything else should be by default, and this should play the one shot. So let's see it in the editor. I'm back after a few minutes of debugging. There was an issue which I did not see the first time. Basically, the sound parameters constructor wasn't getting called. So basically, the values which I was sending were the default ones, like the integer values were 0. And I needed like the volume and pitch and everything to be 1, so that's basically what happened. I forced that every time we need to call this function, the client plays sound, or the server of that matter, you need to specify if it's a one shot or not sound. So that should be it. It's a pretty small fix. You can find some better solutions, of course. So let's test it out. I put, as I told you, the successful spellcast on pour water and a failed sound on the other one, the stop pouring water. So I'll play them now. Just bear in mind it might be just a bit loud, so be prepared. Okay, that seems to be working fine. That as well. Awesome. Okay, so that works. I think that should be it for this video. Of course, there's a ton of more work to be done. We have other systems which we are still working on finishing up for the prototype. We have some pretty important server stuff we need to figure out as well. But I wanted to take you on a tour of something maybe more simple, like some sound playing. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and please keep tuned for new news, and hope you'll play the prototype when we release it soon. Okay, have a great one. Bye bye.